packed with heavenly vegan non-dairy peanut butter chips and a decadent interior. You will not believe that these vegan Levain-style chocolate peanut butter chip cookies are actually low glycemic and can be made in 30 minutes. If you haven't already done so and you love to eat deliciously, make sure to subscribe to the channel so you get all of my recipes for free every single time they're released. Now, I am a huge fan of those tall, dense, chewy, decadent cookies that have been coming out since Levain rocked the world with their innovation in cookies. And since then, I've been hunting down different bakeries and making sure that I taste them or look at them all so I can recreate them in my own home a little bit healthily and also totally vegan, totally non-dairy, totally no eggs for my own enjoyment. And so I can share these recipes with the world. So let's get into the ingredients. In a large mixing bowl, I like to combine all of my ingredients into one base, making it super duper easy to make these cookies in a pinch. You won't need your stand mixer, but you can definitely make it in a stand mixer if you prefer. Firstly, you want to soften a whole stick of vegan butter. I like the Country Crock plant butter because it's affordable and also easy to come by. I know they have different brands out there. Choose the one you prefer. This one is the most economic but also best taste for me. I encourage you to leave a stick of butter out for about 1 or 2 hours before making these cookies. That is probably the most work you're going to have to plan for when making these. And then you will add 50 grams of white granulated sugar, or optionally, as I did to ensure that these cookies are low glycemic, I chose to use a monk fruit granulated sugar substitute. You can choose your favorite. You can use stevia, you can use allulose. Secondly, you want to add 50 grams of coconut sugar or brown sugar. Coconut sugar also has a low glycemic index. It's not as low as monk fruit sweetener, but it is lower than granulated sugar and brown sugar. Add those bad boys in addition to a 1/4 teaspoon of salt. I found that a 1/2 teaspoon of salt is actually way too much. I like to use iodized salt. Add that into the mix. Next, I like to combine my flax eggs with my vanilla paste because these are kind of wet ingredients. You want to combine 2 tablespoons of ground flaxseed with 5 tablespoons of liquid. Either water or non-dairy milk work great. You want to combine those 2 ingredients and let it sit so the flax egg will congeal and work as an egg within the pastry. I like to then add 1.5 teaspoons of vanilla paste. You can use extract or also powder, whatever you have on hand. The next 3 ingredients you want to prepare are your dry ingredients. The most important ingredient perhaps of this recipe, in addition to the peanut butter chips, will be the Dutch processed cocoa powder. You can use regular cocoa powder, but Dutch process is the one that Levain Cookies uses, so that's the one I chose to use in this recipe. For the flours, I use a combination, but feel free to just use all-purpose flour. You want to add 100 grams of all-purpose flour or a combination of all-purpose flour and whole wheat flour. I also find that oat flour, adding a tablespoon or 2 in there, adds a really nice crumbly texture to the cookie. And lastly, you want to include your baking powder. Levain-style cookies, especially when you're making them vegan and you're not including eggs, which are a natural sort of rising agent, you want to add a considerable amount of baking powder, in my opinion, and in my trial and error. I like to add 9 grams of baking powder. No baking soda, just baking powder, and I like to level it out, make sure it's the accurate grams percentage, and keep it in its own little mixing bowl that is the tiny size of my hand. Lastly, our flavor king in this recipe will be the peanut butter chips. I love the zero sugar Lily's peanut butter chips because not only are they zero sugar, I believe they're sweetened with stevia, but they are also vegan. Many of their chocolate chips and white chocolate chips contain dairy, but their peanut butter chips are totally non-dairy. To start, we're gonna mix all of those ingredients that are in our large mixing bowl. The sugars, the butter, and the salt. Combine those with the flax egg and the vanilla extract and combine everything in the bowl until the butter and the sugar is perfectly creamed. You don't really need to have the standard creaming method in these cookies because I find that adding the flax egg and the vanilla paste actually makes it easier because they're more liquid. Just want to make sure that all of that sugar is well integrated and there's no no remaining clumps of sugar. Once you're done creaming the sugar with your flax egg and your vanilla paste, the next step is crucial, and I suggest that you do it. Take the baking powder before you add the all-purpose flour and the cocoa powder and mix that in first into your butter, sugar, flax egg mixture. This is a wonderful tip that I actually learned from the blog Banana Diaries that also specializes in vegan baking, and since then, I haven't gone back. Once you're done, you want to add your all-purpose flour and your cocoa powder. You can sift it or add it manually, and then with a whisk, combine, and once it starts getting too stiff, use a spatula to make the dough for your cookies. Make sure that it's really nice and homogeneous and there are no lumps. A previous mistake I made was that the dough was way too dry. Your dough should be combined, cohesive, but it should not be bone dry whatsoever. You should notice that it has a little bit of texture to it. It's a little wet, but it should not be super, super dry. If you're noticing that your dough is way too dry because perhaps your flour is super absorbent, add a tablespoon or 2 of non-dairy milk. Now our flavor king is coming into the recipe, the peanut butter chips. And with that spatula, you should combine them into the dough until they're evenly spread out. Once everything is fully combined, put a baking mat on a oven tray, wet your hands with a little bit of water, divide the dough into 4 equal portions and roll them into little balls, and then set them on your baking mat that has been placed on a tray. We're gonna let our cookies rest overnight in the refrigerator. Use a minimum of 2 hours of resting if you do not have this amount of time available to you, but doing it overnight makes it easy because it's less work on the day that you're making these cookies. Before we jump back into the recipe, I want to show you all something I've really been loving lately. Teabloom sent me their gorgeous glass tea kettle. It's glass, so there are no microplastics released into your drinks and beverages, and there is a mesh at the top to ensure that the leaves don't get into your tea, topped with a stainless steel cap. And they sent me this caramel almond blossom organic black loose leaf tea to try. I've been totally hooked. It's like a dessert in a cup. Sweet caramel roasted almond flavor with just a hint of floral. If you'd like to try anything from Teabloom, such as this kettle or this tea, I have an affiliate link down in the description and my coupon code that you can use to save a little at checkout. Let's get back to the recipe now. When you're ready to bake these cookies the following morning or after you've let your cookies rest, preheat your oven to 350 Fahrenheit, about 170, 175 Celsius. While you're doing that, we're gonna move our cookies that have been in the refrigerator onto a larger baking tray. We're gonna line it with some parchment paper or a baking mat and then disperse them evenly so they won't bump into one another. After your oven has preheated, you want to bake these cookies in the oven for 14.5 minutes. That was my sweet spot. My oven tends to run a little hot though, so make sure that you bake them anywhere between 14 to 16 minutes. I would definitely err a little less than more baking time to ensure that you don't over bake your cookies. Once your cookies are done baking, you want to take them out of the oven, let them rest for a minimum of 15 to 30 minutes. Once your cookies have cooled and you've resisted biting into them fresh out of the oven, you want to transfer them very carefully to a wire rack where they will cool completely for about an hour or 2. And now let's tune in to the taste test. All right, everybody, c'est seulement moi. It's just me because George's out watching a movie with a friend. So I'm gonna give you my full review of these cookies that took me a while to perfect, but I am proud of myself for taking my time on the recipe because it was totally worth it. We're about to take our first bite. I'm very excited. I've tried imperfect versions of this cookie and I have a really good feeling that these cookies are gonna be everything that I stressed over. Cheers. Crumbly. Wow, that is delicious. The peanut butter adds a kick of sweetness and you get chocolate from the actual cookie dough, but it's unexpected, the peanut butter flavor, because you think it's going to be just a regular double chocolate chip cookie. For all of my peanut butter lovers, you're going to love this cookie. The flavor combination is incredibly unique and I don't find them often in bakeries or simply in other cookie places. So I gotta give myself some credit for remaking these cookies without ever tasting the original. They're fudgy on the inside. They almost taste slightly like a combination of a brownie and a cookie, but they have crisp edges. They're also nice, and let me show you a better full cookie. Hopefully we got that sound. They're flat and slightly hard and chewy at the bottom, but soft, dense in a good way, and decadent in the middle. I am super happy with these cookies, and you will enjoy them as well. This has been Rebeca Martinez, another wonderful recipe from my own making, shared to you completely for free. All that I ask is that you subscribe to the channel and maybe share it with a friend who loves vegan food, especially vegan desserts. See you next time.